Hi, my name is Mike Ward. I'm the Global Director of Content at Pharma Insights. I'm here at the Biotech Showcase in San Francisco, a meeting which runs alongside the JP Morgan meeting, where all the great and the good, the movers and the shakers of the pharma and biotech industry come together on an annual basis. I'm joined now by Stephen Bloch, who's a general partner with Canaan Partners, a venture capital fund. And welcome, Steve.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, great. So you've got sort of $4 billion under management for your funds, and at the moment you've got your latest fund, Fund 10, is what, $675 million fund. So how's that going? How invested are you from that fund?
Yeah, it's a great question. This is our 10th fund. We've been in business since 1987. We raised this fund just over a year ago at the end of 2014, and we're just about a quarter of the way through the fund. So we have active capital. We're looking at good investments to make, and are really excited about the market right now.
Right. Yeah. So what sort of things are you looking for? I mean, sort of geographies or areas?
Sure. We really focus on the U.S. One thing I should mention about our fund is we're one of the few diversified healthcare funds still in existence. Actually, we do technology and healthcare out of the same fund. And about half of that is healthcare, and half is hardcore technology, like Facebook type activities.
Oh, okay, yes.
And so of that, we spend most of our time in biopharma, but we're also very, very interested in digital health, occasionally look at medical devices and diagnostics, really trying to find the best technology to solve human disease.
Right, okay. So, and sort of what stage? I mean, are you in really, really early?
Yeah, we're really, basically, I call ourselves early investors. We're really looking for technologies that are past academic stage, that are ready for commercial development. We kind of think of ourselves as trying to get companies ready to be bought, or ready to be what's considered pharma ready or device ready, so somebody else might be able to take those projects on, or eventually they might be able to get public.
Right. So if I was an academic, how developed would the asset have to be? Would I have to have sort of chemistry characterization or some preclinical model work done?
Yeah, well, we're really looking for people who are experienced in pharmaceutical development or medical device development. So it'd probably have to be a little bit farther along than that. Occasionally we incubate companies for things that we think are very exciting. They're often with innovators, academic innovators who have had some track record and success in the past and know how to get things ready to be preclinical stage. But we'll invest in a preclinical company and get it ready for the clinic, try to get proof of concept and human data through early clinical trials, phase 2A trials. And then typically we are talking to pharma or device companies and seeing if they want to take on development, or we want to continue it on through raising more capital. Right. So that's typically the stage we're investing.
So, and your company builders rather than sort of financing an asset?
We consider ourselves very active investors. We all have backgrounds in industry, been in this business a long time. Venture doesn't really lend itself to people who are getting in for the first time without a lot of mentorship and a lot of experience. So we really are a group of people who are ex-executives in medical companies in one way or another. Many of us are physicians or scientists who've been in industry for a while. So we have a lot of experience in being able to take those assets, develop them, and I think we have pretty good pattern recognition.
Right. So you mentioned that you're sort of a quarter of the way through. Does that mean that you've already invested sort of $160, $170 million, or is it that you've earmarked with the assets you've already invested in that $170 million?
Yeah, well, we typically target about a number of companies to get enough diversification in our portfolio. So we'll do 15 to 18 companies. Right. We've invested in 5 or 6 to date. Right. We typically invest somewhere between 5 and 10 in the initial stage of a company, and then keep reserves of at least 2x behind that for all the subsequent activities. And sometimes things go well, sometimes they don't, and we really want to be able to have capital to help companies get past those bumps. And that, when I talk about operations, and I think what venture capital is able to bring to the table, it's actually being able to recognize when bumps are going to happen, be able to help companies work through those and make sure there's capital to make sure they continue to have success.
Okay, and I mean, so historically, I mean, this is Fund 10 that you're on. So historically, what have been sort of the returns that you've managed to give back to your limited partners?
Yeah, those are confidential because we have private investors and they don't like those released. But by and large, in venture capital, if you can't aim for at least a 3x return across your funds on average, it's hard to stay in business. And the industry did have a reckoning, between 2000 and 2010, where a lot of money had been invested, not a lot had been returned to limited partners. We all have our masters, right? Yeah. And so our investors expect a certain return, or they'd look to the public markets or alternative investments. Right. And venture capital is hard, so it does take some experience and patience. Yeah. But 3x is really the minimum.
Okay, and I mean, the thing about the VC industry is it tends to sort of almost invest in fashions where there's sort of certain types of companies or certain sort of technologies are hot at a moment. On this fund, what kind of companies have you invested at the moment, and what do you think you're going to be doing going forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. We've actually been very consistent with our strategy over time, and I'd say we're maybe investing a little bit in what's fashion as driven by the pharma industry. We always listen very, very closely in biotech to the pharma industry and what they're interested in. But also they look sometimes to leadership from us for things that we're interested in. So I'll give you an example. We've had a great franchise in infectious disease for 15 years. Pharma had abandoned infectious disease because often it's one treatment and you're done, and there wasn't a sustainable revenue opportunity for pharma, so many companies abandoned that. We consistently stayed in, we saw that opportunity, we saw that vacuum, it fit our model of how to invest, and so we got back in infectious disease starting in 2002, and we've been heavily invested there, and I'm very proud to say that of the last 10 antibiotics that were approved by the FDA, 4 came out of our Series A investment companies. So I'd say that's one area where perhaps we're providing the leadership, and then pharma, interestingly enough, has gotten back into the infectious disease game in a more substantial way. On the other hand, I'd say something like immuno-oncology or some of the oncology-driven things, there's a lot of exciting work going on. There's a lot of exciting work going on in private companies, but a lot of that's also being driven by pharma and pharma's interest. And pharma has been an early acquirer of those sorts of companies for the last couple of years, and we think that's a very exciting area as well. So sometimes it's driven by us, sometimes it's driven by them, and I think we both have this great synergy going on of sharing information. It's really evolved over the 15 or 20 years I've been involved in biotech.
And over that period, have you sort of seen a maturing in the offerings that you've been given? So I can imagine, in the past, it would be an idea and it wouldn't necessarily be that well formed. I kind of get the impression that these days, what the pictures you're going to get are a little bit more sophisticated.
I think that's also interesting. I'd have to say that in the late 2000 period, there was a lot of fear in pharma that the patent cliff was looming, and that a lot of medicines were going to come off patents, and that there was a dearth of things in the pipeline in big pharma. And so pharma started looking very, very closely at assets that had gone through a lot of clinical development, that they could see a pretty clear and rapid pathway to commercialization. There was a lot of acquisitions of those companies in that period of time, and our portfolio reflected that. We had a lot of companies that were phase 2 or phase 3 ready assets that were bought by pharma. I'd say in the last couple of years, as those pipelines have been filled, there's been a shift to earlier companies by pharma. Again, we're kind of thinking about what pharma wants, because our primary mode of exit for our companies to get returns is to sell our companies to pharma. And pharma has gone earlier and earlier, especially in the oncology space, where early companies may pioneer something, and pharma feels confident about of taking that forward and is looking for that early technology. And there have been a lot of early acquisitions. I think they felt confident about their later stage pipeline, and so we've gone earlier as a result. And so we've funded more early science and early development platform companies than we ever have in the last 2 or 3 years.
So those sort of business models and where the potential exits are sophisticated. We know how that works. You mentioned about digital health. I'm still trying to understand how does that really. I mean, we can understand how it might work, but how is the business model developing?
Right.
As far as
So
you're concerned.
yeah, I talked a little bit about the synergies I think we've developed as a venture firm, as venture industry between us and pharma. We've always had a long interest in digital health. We need to be able to deliver more efficient, more affordable medicines to patients, and I think pharma is intensely interested in leadership from venture in digital health. There's been a lot of money invested in digital health. Some of that's been invested in trying to streamline how healthcare is delivered at the hospital level or at the physician level. We're partly focused there, but we're also focused on those things that we think we can bring to pharma to help them think about digital health landscape. And just maybe a couple examples in our portfolio to make it more tangible. Yeah. We have a company based in New York called Truveris. Truveris offers audit services for pharmaceutical claims for self-insured employers. They use the information, the learning that they've gotten out of that to tailor programs to allow pharma to get closer to potential customers, and we offer an app called OneRx, O-N-E-R-X, that allows a customer at the cash register at the pharmacy to get the best price for a pharmaceutical. So this idea of cost and access is very, very important, I think, to the healthcare system. From pharma's perspective, it's very important they understand their customers and that they'd like to be close to the customer, and digital health affords that opportunity.
So for that product, is that something that therefore patients would be almost like doing one of these sort of website comparisons, whether like you do with insurance or
we do all those calculations on the fly through the app. So if you're trying to buy your Lipitor prescription, you have a choice of generic or Lipitor branded. It'll calculate your insurance, it'll calculate any promotions or any other opportunities there are for cost savings, and it'll find you the best pharmacy in your region.
Right, okay. So that's one of the investments.
Yeah, another is Gluco. Gluco is an aggregator of diabetes data to provide a unified, simplified dashboard of all the patients with diabetes in a medical practice. Right. And what they do is they aggregate all that information from all the various, there are 50 medical devices that are integrated into this. They're glucometers, they're insulin delivery systems and the like. And what we really liked, we co-invested actually in this company with Medtronic, which is the largest player in diabetes devices. And we felt it was very important to streamline that information to the doctor. It gives industry players an opportunity to get better understand their customers, and it provides a better patient and doctor experience. Doctors are often grappling with those 50 devices and trying to integrate that data all with different proprietary formats and information, and this just makes it a lot easier to manage disease.
Great. So you're a VC, so you always have to be optimistic.
Yeah, so have to be really optimistic.
But there's been a sort of, we know that the industry is on the back of what's happened over the last few years. It's pretty well funded. There's been a lot of excitement. There are now some sort of challenges that the industry is facing. Is this just do you think, a temporary sort of knock in confidence and it will return, or do you think we're moving into a different environment?
Right. Well, VCs always look at the glasses half full. And we've been through a number of these cycles in the past. There's obviously been a great run in the biotech markets in particular, and a lot of money has come into the system. I think that's been terrific. It made it possible to fund a lot of companies that hadn't been well funded before, and there have been a lot of successes as a result. But that, I can't predict public markets. I can't predict what's going to happen. I do know that the pharma industry is vitally important to human health. They provide great benefit. There's been incredible progress in science, and I think we've been able to help continue to build that industry. And so I'm very, very hopeful about the future. We'll go through financial ups and downs, but right now I think we're actually in the best shape we've been in a decade.
Great. Well, I'm sure you're in great demand here. Thanks very much for stopping by.
Yeah, pleasure. I appreciate it.
Cheers.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
For the time.